Investors are looking for growth wherever they can get it, and they can still get it with Palantir.
It's been a huge week for Palantir investors as the stock shot back up again thanks to another big contract announcement, one of many sealed deals that keep coming in despite cutbacks in government spending.
Palantir is providing essential services that they can't get anywhere else. It's not just another software company, it's one of one.
MarketBeat's Chris Markoch dives into why demand for Palantir services continues to see rapid growth, leading to some mixed outlooks from analysts.
He still has a price target of $120. The ultimate bear case is that the stock should be worth about $41 a share.
So where does the real value for Palantir lie? And could this stock be in for more of a wild ride over the next few weeks? Let's dive in. Chris, great to have you back on to talk about one of your favorite stocks, and especially on a really good week for one of your favorite stocks.
Right, we're talking about Palantir, and it's up about 4% for the week. Largely because of news that came out it came out over the weekend, and then the stock reflected that on Monday morning. Palantir announced a partnership with NATO, which will now be using Palantir's Maven Smart system. So now it shows that Palantir, which is already being used across all branches of the U.S. military, this is now solidifying its position not only in North America, but now also in Europe.
That's a big announcement for Palantir. And we've seen this stock historically always jump whenever those big contracts are announced.
Right.
We'll get into more of the recent contracts because there's been a lot for this company in just the past couple of months. But there's also been a lot of movement in this stock. We last talked about Palantir on this channel at the end of March. If you haven't watched that video yet, make sure to watch that one too. But there's been so much movement since we last talked about Palantir. Let's just pull up the chart and look at some of those moves.
So Bridget, we're going to start here with the 5-day chart. And this move right here, this is right as the market opened. You see the timestamp for 9:30 on April 14th. And the stock shot up, and that was after the investors were digesting the NATO news, and immediately the stock popped. So you can see all week, it even made a newer high on Tuesday. And then the stock sold off Wednesday, which was in sympathy with the entire market that sold off. But the stock's come back since then, and that's why I'm saying it's up about 4% for the week. But the more interesting aspect, and that was what you were just bringing up, Bridget, was if we take a look at the month chart for Palantir. And so we taped our last video, it was right around in here somewhere, okay? And Palantir was trading around $80 and stuff like that. And it had come down off of a big high, and some people thought, okay, this is going to be where we start seeing that big correction that was expected. And sure enough, you did see that at the beginning of April. Palantir sold off. Shares even got down into the mid 70s. But what you've noticed since then is this pattern of higher highs and higher lows. And whenever investors see that, that's a bullish signal. That means that there's a lot of momentum going on with the stock right now, and that is what appears to be the case with Palantir.
Certainly a lot of momentum and a lot of moves, like you said.
Yep.
But we go over this chart to talk about what it all means for Palantir's future success. I know the last time we talked about Palantir, you gave a really good perspective on the long approach of this being a long-term stock that's going to continue to grow over time. And I think we're already seeing that even in the short term for this company because of all the success they're having in the business. So let's go over some of those recent contracts just in the last couple of months.
Yeah, so what you've been seeing a lot with Palantir, and it's been really starting for a couple of years, but you've even seen it continue that momentum in 2025, is they're getting a lot of contracts signed, not only on the government side of the business, but also on the commercial side. And just in the last 30 days or so, we saw Palantir announce a partnership with Archer Aviation and Everfox. On the government side of the business, they're helping Archer, for example, figure out how to streamline their process of scaling up their production for their, for their flying cars, as we would call them. But then you also saw Palantir do a partnership with a company called R1, which is an industry leader in revenue cycle management for the healthcare sector. We talked about the fact that just those costs of healthcare, just in the administrative side of the business, accounts for so much of healthcare spending. And Palantir is working with R1 to help figure that out, to help make it so that it can become more cost effective, not only for the companies, but then ultimately for the consumers. And these are just a couple of examples of contracts that Palantir's won in the last few months. And a lot of this is just because of their go-to-market strategy, which is they have these AI boot camps where customers get to actually use the software right on site, and they get to experiment with it. And once they experiment with it, they realize that this is something that their company has to have.
Demonstrating the product is a really good way to sell it, and clearly it's effective, not just in their new commercial endeavors, but still with those government contracts, even in a time when government spending is going down, especially in the US. Let's talk about those rumors. I know that kind of fueled some of the sell-off that happened late in March, early in April, was all of these Doge cuts with government spending, people worrying it might impact Palantir because so much of their business is government contracts. What have we learned about some of those fears so far?
That's a great point you bring up, Bridget. That indeed was a big reason for Palantir selling off. Was some investors were getting skittish about the fact that you were hearing about consultant contracts being cut by the Department of Defense, and Palantir is a large consultant for the government. But just in the last couple of weeks, we've heard from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He has said that indeed there is going to be some cutting in the DoD budget for consultant contracts, but most of that cuts, in fact, almost all of those cuts, are going to be for what you might consider the waste and inefficiency, the redundancies, things that, as Hegseth said, the Defense Department can do for themselves, and therefore they can cut that out of the budget. That's not what Palantir provides for the government. Palantir is providing essential services that they can't get anywhere else. So I'm not worried at all about Palantir losing business from the government side of the business. In fact, I would expect that you're going to see Palantir increase the business that they get from the government side of the business. Of course, Congress still has to get the budget all figured out, so it may be another quarter or two before we actually know what those increases might be.
Yeah, that's a good take on what's happening on the US side of government contracts, but it's also, I think, encouraging, and why we're seeing such a boost in Palantir right now, to see the company expanding more internationally, more globally. Do we see more of that on the future as well?
Well, so far we haven't seen any significant contracts being announced in that international realm, but the NATO contract is huge because, again, it's going to show that Palantir is going to be used by these European countries. And once it starts getting used on the government side there, you'd have to imagine that you're going to also have many commercial customers that want to use it. And again, the reason why, it's because of Palantir's ontology, which is what makes AI useful to companies. And you've heard several domestic companies heard it. I've heard BP say it, for one, is the idea that without Palantir's software, without their programs like Foundry and Gotham and such, AI can't get to the insights that they really need. And that's what Palantir does differently. It allows them to really mine that data differently and get to insights that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get to. That's what makes Palantir different. It's not just another software company. It's one of one.
Yeah, very unique company, and very successful with getting new contracts. Correct. And expanding their business. Clearly, the proof is in the product. When they show companies how it works, companies want it. So we know it's valuable, but let's get to the other discussion many investors and the debate investors have when it comes to Palantir, and that's whether it's overpriced. What do you say about where the price is sitting now? Is there still a lot of debate out there about whether this company is too expensive for the profit they're making right now?
You're always going to have that debate, Bridget, and it's there. There's no question about it. I'm not going to debate math. I'm not going to sit here and say that you can look at, by any fundamental metric, Palantir is overvalued as a stock. But again, that doesn't mean that you don't have investors who are willing to pay that price right now. And one of the things that's happened over the past few months is Palantir's drawn a lot of short interest. Sellers who think that who are investing in Palantir with the idea that they believe the stock price is going to go down. Well, whenever Palantir makes one of these big moves like this, there's short covering that has to happen, which just adds more fuel to Palantir stock. So until some of that activity abates, you're going to still see a lot of volatility in Palantir stock. And that's not the fault of retail investors. Right now, that's largely the fault of institutional investors. So Palantir does need to quiet down. Eventually, there will be some price discovery here. And I expect that there may be some choppiness here over the next couple of quarters. But analysts have been raising their price target. The ultimate bear case I still hear for Palantir is that the stock should be worth about $41 a share. Well, the current analyst estimates don't support that at all. The analyst estimates are pushing this up around maybe $65, $70 at the floor. And that's what we saw towards the beginning of April. And as soon as the stock hit that level, the stock shot right back up. So I'm just not quite on board with this idea that the bear case is in and that you're going to be seeing $41 a share for Palantir. I can get on board with the idea that you may start seeing some normalization of Palantir in that $70 to $80 range. I can buy that. But right now, investors are looking for growth wherever they can get it, and they can still get it with Palantir. However, retail investors need to also keep in mind Palantir's got a lot of liquidity with that too. So if investors are looking to take some quick profits off the books, they're probably going to be looking at stocks like Palantir too. So it's going to be a volatile ride. But once again, if you're a long-term investor, you don't really care about that. You're going to filter out the noise, and you're going to keep your eye on the fact of where you think Palantir is going to be as a stock in the next 3 years, the next 5 years. And I've heard many people who have gone deeper into Palantir than I have, who are suggesting that it's not unlikely at all that you could see Palantir be at $200 a share in 5 years. So do with that as you will.
Yeah, that's a great long-term outlook for Palantir, but you can't ignore all of this high short interest right now, like you said. If you want to learn more about how to invest in these high short interest stocks right now and keep your investment safe during that potential volatility, check out this latest free premium report from MarketBeat.com. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description of this video to get that free report on MarketBeat.com. All right, Chris, you've talked about the bear outlook of maybe down around 40. Talk about the biggest bull analyst outlook out there. It's quite a bit higher than where it is right now.
Right. I mean, I've heard some analysts who say they're not willing to maybe give it a quote, but they're willing to say it's about $200 a share. But when you look at just the analysts that have actually given a rating to Palantir, the highest still comes from Wedbush, Dan Ives of Wedbush. He still has a price target of $120 on there. So that's his price target in the next 12 months. So if you look at the stock where it's trading today to where that's going now, that's almost a 30% gain from where it's at right now. So again, if you're an investor and you're looking to get in, there's still, according to, if you believe Dan Ives of Wedbush, and he's a fairly credible technology analyst, there's room to get on board Palantir even right now at the high price.
It's a good week for Palantir investors. Thank you, Chris, for diving through kind of what's been going on this week. Let us know what you think. Are you all in on Palantir? Did you get in early and you're just watching this ride, or are you continuing to add to your position? We'd love to hear what your strategy is with this stock. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, happy investing.